Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our fall webinar series. This is the first of three that we're going to be doing on this particular topic. And today's topic is creating the sticky client with creative plan design ideas. We're going to go through 4 or 5 case studies today, so that's exciting. We've gotten feedback from you that people love case studies, so we're going to be case study centric, if you would, on this web or Zoomcast, if you would. So on behalf of all of us at the Benefits Trust, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you. Joining us from the Benefits Trust today is Rob Crowder, my son, and Mike Ignatz is with us. I think Carrie Lane may be joining us, but she may be tied up for just a moment, but she should be coming in a few minutes. For participating today, you're going to get a CE credit, and we're going to send that out real quick. As well as that, you're going to get a very short survey. Fill it out, send it back to us. Please tell us how we did today. We want to do it better tomorrow. Simple as that. Also, there's an opportunity to give us some feedback and comments, and give us some, as well as that, you can give us some ideas on future Zoomcasts that you'd like to see. Early in late November, or early December. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. Rob or Mike, maybe you might know it, but we're going to do a real special Zoomcast on travel insurance. And I think that's going to be very timely as we get closer to travel season, even though people are traveling now. But it's going to be a great session. We've got Melissa from Green Shield that's going to be joining us on that as a special presenter, and she's the head of travel at Green Shield. So that's going to be one day and one day only, but make sure you check that out as well. We're also going to be doing more Zoomcasts in January, February, and March. So check out our website at thebenefitstrust.com to catch future dates as well. If you have any questions throughout the day today, either raise your hand in your, with your little icon, as well as, or just put something in the chat box. We'll get to it, or Mike or Rob might answer it as well. But remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid question is one that's not asked. So please feel free to ask questions. So again, thank you very much for participating today. We've got lots of people joining right now, and that's awesome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I want to make sure I get the right one because, I'm old, so I'm somewhat technically challenged. Can everybody see that?
Yep, looks good.
Right.
Yep.
So again, creating the sticky client with creative plan design ideas. Let's jump right into things here. Let me just click on this. There we go. We want to talk about the Benefits Trust very briefly. This is not a commercial for the Benefits Trust, but we got to give you some sort of background. As well as that, we want to talk about executive owner benefit plans, healthcare spending accounts, creative plan designs. We're going to go through all of that pretty quickly and then get right into the case studies, because I think that really sort of capsulizes, if you would, what we're going to, the message we're getting across today. And it was interesting, just before we got on here, I was speaking with Crystal. Crystal's joining us from British Columbia, so thank you very much, Crystal. And you were just in Hawaii, so your timing is all screwed up, but we appreciate you coming on so early. But you said something that was very interesting, and I was thinking about this when preparing for the session this morning. Is if you get one good idea, I think sessions like this are of value. In my 35 years of experience, I've attended many sessions over the years, including a couple last week. And Joel, you were there at the Canadian Sales Council, our Congress, and you always get a good idea or two out of these things. So we hopefully that you'll get a great idea and make it worthwhile. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being in a room where everybody gets smarter. And that's really what our philosophy is today. As well as that, questions and answers. If we run out of time, we're going to stop, but everybody can stick around for a few minutes and we can talk in more detail. So about the Benefits Trust, we started on January 1st, 1994. So we're coming up to our 30th anniversary in just a few weeks' time. We are a full-service third-party administration company, and we are located in Ontario. We primarily serve clients in Southern and Central Ontario because there's just a lot of them there. As I like to say, we're the largest independently owned TPA in Canada. There were certainly some that were a lot larger, but they got purchased by some of the larger public companies. We really provide fully customizable employee benefit programs or solutions. We've got, as I like to say, exceptional client experience, and it's interesting because we sent a note out to many of our clients and many of the advisors as we're refreshing our website for 2024. For 2024 for our 30th anniversary. We asked for some feedback and asked for some testimonials, and really we just had this opportunity to have exceptional client experience over the last many years. As well as that, we've got long-term relationships with the major Canadian insurance carriers and have had for many years. We don't just deal with one insurance carrier, we deal with many of them. Our target market is dealing with advisors like you that have clients with 1 to 100 employees. We do have clients that are much larger than that, but really our focus is dealing with clients with 1 to 100, or dealing with advisors with 1 to 100 clients. 100 employees, pardon me. Slow down, Rob. Point of view, why we work in that marketplace? Well, it's interesting. Toronto has more cranes than most US cities combined. There's approximately 250 in operation right now. That's more than New York, Boston, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, DC combined. Ontario is working. Ontario is working hard right now. There's a lot of things that are going on. Not only just building, but there's a lot of business activity going on, and it's just such a robust place. It's amazing. And a little while ago, I put together some of these presentations, and I've used this slide a few times, but it just really captures what I'm talking about. Right now in Ontario, there's 449,770 businesses. 440,000 of those businesses have less than 100 full-time employees. There are endless prospects. People have asked me over the years, are you ever going to go national? And I go, absolutely. We would be happy to go, right across the country as soon as we get, all of the 440,000 businesses in Ontario. So it's amazing. There's just so much business happening here in Ontario, and especially in this size market. And a recent study by the Business Development Bank, if you would, 98% of the businesses have less than 100 full-time employees, and it equates to 52% of Canada's GDP. This is where the money is. This is where the money is, and I think this is an opportunity where you can add value in this marketplace at a profit. There are so many businesses, and so many businesses need benefits, especially today, to attract and retain employees, and they need your help as a professional advisor. They need your help. And I just think there is such an opportunity here. I was speaking with somebody last night, and they were talking, actually I was speaking to my niece last night, and she was saying, is your business still vibrant? She knows nothing about the benefits business, if you would. And I said, I was quoting some of these statistics, and she was just blown away, right? Especially with the number of cranes that are operating here in Southern and Central Ontario. It's just amazing. So to set the stage, let's just take a quick step back. I often think, and I think we were talking about this very briefly before 10 o'clock, some of you folks that were on earlier, often we're translators. Often as advisors, what we are is really translators, and we need to use a simple language. And one thing that happened to me about 10 years ago, or actually more than that, probably now about 15 years ago, is I was meeting with this advisor, and I was meeting with this client, and it was the first meeting we had, and the client was really frustrated. He was just getting really frustrated. He felt like he was wasting his time, and you can tell by his body language. He was sitting back in his chair and his arms were crossed, and the meeting wasn't going well. And I said, everybody just stop. And I have no idea where this came from, but I said, what is a benefit plan? And he goes, it's what we're talking about, this health and dental crap, right? And I said, no, a benefit plan is nothing more than a promise between an employer and an employee. And then he sort of started thinking about that, and you can see the light going off in this particular gentleman's head. And all of a sudden it changed. We used simple language, and it just changed his body language. It changed the tone of the meeting, and eventually he became a client. But it was that moment in time, it was, using very simple language, that a benefit plan is a promise between an employer and a group of employees. And I think it's important to ask future-based questions. It's about asking questions about things that are going to happen in the future as opposed to what's happened in the past. It's like having a roadmap to where you're going. If you want to drive, to someplace you've never been before, you look at a map. You either type it into the GPS system in your car or whatever it is, but you need that roadmap. And the best question that I've found, and I know many of you that have been on these sessions before have heard me say this, but it originally came from Dan Sullivan from the Strategic Coach. But it's very simple. If we were meeting here 3 years from now, and you were looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened for you to say it's been the best 3 years of your life? And it's interesting when you ask that question and you use very simple language. We're not talking about deductibles and co-insurances. You're using that very simple language, and it's amazing because they're going to spell out exactly where they're going to be going in the next couple of years. And this creates the opportunity for you as an advisor to introduce creative plan design ideas, right? Because you want to help them get there. It's not about your business, it's about their business. And how can you help them get there? And when clients have creative plan designs, this is something that I believe very strongly, they tend not to look elsewhere. When a client has a creative plan design in place, they tend not to look elsewhere. The plan actually works for them and meets their specific needs. And it's interesting. I don't know if any of you've noticed, but I'm a little larger in certain areas than others, right? And my wife wants me to be, but that's just the way it is. And I often buy these shirts that are custom made because they just fit great and they last, and it's money well spent, and I get a great deal of value out of them. But once you buy a custom shirt or anything custom for that matter, it's hard to buy off the rack again, right? It's hard to buy off the rack again. So creative plan design is really custom plan designs in a lot of ways. It's how you present it, creatively, and it creates that opportunity to add a great deal of value to your client. They don't move. They don't look around for other advisors. They don't take advisors' calls. And as well as that, often customizer, creative plan designs are often a lot more profitable for you as an advisor in the long term. So executive benefits. One of the things that we've done at the Benefits Trust is with respect to executive benefits, and this is something that we did starting 30 years ago or 29 years ago, is 100% owner benefit. 100%, no deductibles, no co-insurances, no limits. It's just 100%, and it's a fully budgeted ASO solution. It's the most tax effective solution for business owners. Quite simply, using the example, I wear glasses, and the last time I got new glasses, which is probably about 2 or 3 years ago, instead of just buying one pair, I bought 3 pairs. So I have one in my office, my home office, one in my office, and one pair in my briefcase, because I never want to be without them. And I was going to buy those and might as well make it a tax effective solution and pay for it through my benefit plan, then pay for it with after-tax dollars. So it just makes a great deal of sense. As well as that, we can add in a claim secured drug card. As well as that, we can add in stop loss and out of country coverage with either 30, 60, 90, 120, or 180-day coverage, because I know a lot of people spend a lot of time working outside of the province of Ontario. We provide monthly reporting, so that eliminates surprises at renewal time, and it really gets their attention. Once they drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, with executive benefit plans, they don't look back. They don't look back. They touch it once and it works and works. They touch the claim once and it works extraordinarily well. So we also want to talk about healthcare spending accounts. Healthcare spending accounts. A lot of people say, well, Rob, do you offer healthcare spending accounts in replace of a regular benefit plan? And I'm saying a healthcare spending account is just part of a promise. It can be a large part or it can be a very small part, but a healthcare spending account is just part of a promise. And again, one of the best ways to describe healthcare spending accounts is I like to say, is a bucket of money. As that translator comes through, it's easy for employers, the decision makers, to grasp, number one, but number two, it's easy for the employee, the plan member, to grasp as well. There's a bucket of money that goes into there's a bucket, and the money goes into that healthcare spending account from the plan sponsor, and then the member can withdraw money from that bucket for eligible CRA expenses. It's as simple as that. The benefit promise on a healthcare spending account, it's critical. It's got to be made annually in advance. So you get, for example, $1,200 a year in your healthcare spending account. That's made annually in advance. Plan sponsor determines the amount or the formula for the money to go in there. It's 100% budget certainty for the employer. The cost isn't going to go up unless the employer decides that. There's 100% flexibility for the employee or the member. So for example, in my bucket, I can spend that however I choose, and Joel, you can spend that money however you choose, but I don't have any influence on the way you spend it, and you don't have any influence on the way I spend it. There are 3 options that are available, and this is again driven by Canada Revenue Agency. I've got a balanced carry forward provision, which says any unused balance could be carried forward into the next benefit year. Expense carry forward provision. So if you've got a large expense, you can claim it this year and then claim the remainder part of it the following year, or no carry forward provision. Without going into too much detail, just one thing I want to mention is as well how we operate healthcare spending accounts is they're funded on a monthly basis and they're adjudicated on an annual basis. That makes us a little bit different than others. Quite simply, the client, if the bucket of money is $1,200, the client is going to put $100 each month into that bucket. But the promise that the employer is making to the employee in this particular case is they've got $1,200 in their healthcare spending account. They can use that money however they choose throughout the year. So we're going to adjudicate it on an annualized basis. So if the client only put $100 in, and the employee comes in the first month and spends 1,000 of those $1,200, we're going to write them a check, or that makes me sound old. We're going to transfer the money into their account that says that they've got, here's $1,000 reimbursement for their expense. Anyways, we encourage you to visit the benefitstrust.com. We've got an ebook on our site on details about healthcare spending accounts. But again, they're just a component of a benefit plan often, and it's the plan sponsor provides that cost certainty, and it depends on where they are on the line. There can be a large component of a benefit plan or a small component of a benefit plan. It's really up to the plan sponsor to determine exactly what is best for them. All right, we went through that really quick, actually 17 minutes. That's awesome. Now we want to get into these case studies and spend a little bit more time on these case studies. So we found this client again through an advisor, and we went and saw them, and it was quite straightforward. This family was 3 brothers. They were working side by side, and they had 3 different companies. They had 3 different companies, and they had 3 different plans in their 3 different companies. Simple as that. The existing arrangement they found was cumbersome because they were dealing with 3 different insurance companies and 3 different plans. The plans were similar in many ways, but there were a few key differences, and the key differences were very specific to their particular plans. The plans or the companies that they were running were very different companies. They weren't in the same business. They were very separate businesses. But the multiple family owners were active in the business. But the 3 brothers sort of ran these businesses, and even though they were very separate businesses, they shared in the profits of these 3 businesses, and they shared in the profits equally. And as I mentioned, there was lots of family members in the various businesses, but the owners were frustrated with the restrictive plan design, and they were also frustrated with cost plus. And why cost plus I don't think works in a lot of ways is especially with business owners. So for example, at the Benefits Trust, we've got, 30 employees in our organization. I don't write checks, so to speak. I sign checks, I approve checks or payments, but I don't process those payments. So if I wanted to get, 3 pair of glasses totaling, for example, $1,800, and I didn't have a vision care benefit in my standard plan, I would have to fill out a form that says, here's the cost plus form for the various insurance company or provider. And then I would have to do our internal backup on why I want a payment made to this particular organization and what, account it has to come out of on our general ledger. And then I have to send that to our accounts payable person. So the accounts payable person is checking like she has been trained to do. And it is all of a sudden she knows my business. She knows that I'm getting $1,800 for 3 pairs of glasses, where meanwhile she doesn't have any vision care benefit. So it's just cumbersome. You've got to deal with it. You've got to put in all these extra steps. So the owners were very frustrated with this particular plan design. So the solution that we put in place, or suggested that they put in place, which they adopted, was we consolidate the 3 plans into one plan with multiple divisions and multiple classes. We kept the 3 unique plan designs for each separate company. 1 bill was sent to the company instead of 3, one of the companies, I should say, and there was 1 provider for each company to deal with. And it was great because the 1 bill was sent to that 1 company, and then they just charged back because we were able to separate the bill into the various divisions and various classes within those divisions. So it was easy for them to charge back the appropriate cost to each particular profit center. As well as that, we added the separate owner class for all of the family with 100% unlimited coverage. And again, that eliminated the cost plus component of it. So the result was the one billing statement. The client was happy with that. And again, super easy to charge back the appropriate costs to each profit center. The client can still keep their 3 plan designs available, but the owners were very happy with the unlimited plan design. And quite frankly, especially their partners and spouses, they were very happy with that unlimited plan design because they didn't have that cumbersome cost plus type of an arrangement. They touched the claim once and they got reimbursed for the entire amount right away. So they absolutely loved it. And it was interesting. One of the things that we found is profit wasn't an issue with this particular company. They had lots of profits and they didn't mind spending money. But at the end of year 1, we ended up having claims increased to $30,000 for the owners and their families. So the claims were significant, and these were things that they were paying for with historically after-tax money if they didn't want to put it through the cost plus. It just made it easier. So all of a sudden, claims increased by $30,000, so their cost increased by $30,000 plus the appropriate administration and taxes. They just thought the solution was excellent. So this custom plan design, even though the plan design really wasn't that custom, it was just simplifying some of their administration components and then adding that custom component to it for the executives. But the custom plan design increased benefit costs and the client was happy. So we increased the benefit costs and the client was happy. They were ecstatic, actually. We've had this particular client for many, many years now. Don't forget, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, raise your hand, happy to answer them. All right. Case study number 2, we call this one mental health. This particular company has a pretty standard plan design in place and pretty standard mental health benefits. It's the only coverage that it has in place was for mental health really was in the paramedical coverage, and it included coverage for a clinical psychologist. And it was up to $500 per practitioner. So pretty straightforward stuff, but it, as many of you know, a clinical psychologist, the definition is very narrow, it's very specific, and it's often difficult for someone to see a clinical psychologist. Even to get an appointment with a clinical psychologist, it's very, very difficult. Mental health practitioners, when someone's suffering from a mental health illness, they may need to see someone right away. But the owners didn't want to make any major changes to the plan. They were very concerned because this discussion began right at the beginning of COVID. And they didn't want to make any major changes to the plan because they wanted to give their employees that element of security and certainty and not make any major changes to their plan. And one thing that was very clear in dealing with the senior partner in this particular company and their senior manager that was really running the company, they really cared about their employees, and they're very nervous, especially with COVID, and they really cared about their employees, and they wanted to keep their employees around, and they wanted to keep them happy. So one thing that we did is we suggested to them that they change the wording for mental health benefits from clinical psychologist to any registered mental health practitioner. Again, a promise between an employer and a group of employees. So we can do the employer can do whatever it is that they want to do. They can make the promise to whatever it is that they want to promise. So what we did is we put where we changed the definition from clinical psychologist to any registered mental health practitioner and put it in its own silo. So instead of having $500 per practitioner, it was a maximum of $1,500. And it didn't matter what type of practitioner they went to, as long as it was a registered mental health practitioner. So in other words, you can't hang out with your buddy in the garage on, and get advice on how to get through a problem and, pay that particular person, right? It's got to be a mental health practitioner of some sort. And it could be a family therapist. It could be a, child therapist, anything that was included, as a registered mental health practitioner. And the key thing was putting it in that own, in its own silo as well. So it kept all the rest of the paramedical disciplines at $500, didn't change that list, but we just put that in its own silo. And we also added an EAP program. And the result was amazing. The result was amazing because the employees are now able to easily or easier to receive coverage from a broad range of practitioners. The benefit change was very well received by employees and their families. There was a whole pile of uncertainty, and it was just, hey, good news, we're just adding to the benefit plan. We're adding to the benefit plan in this particular area and this particular need, right? We're changing it, changing the definition from that single practitioner to any practitioner. And it was just a very, very powerful message that the client was able to send at a time of need. The result was actually just an increase of about 5% after year one. So it was a very minimal increase. But sorry, we also added in this particular case an EAP program. So the EAP program was on top of that. A very small increase after the first year. So the company decided that they were going to further that message or further, and they sent that message, they sent a new message out to all of the employees that says, hey, great change last year to our benefit plan with the mental health silo, if you would. And what we're going to do is we're going to increase that from $1,500 to $2,000. So they increased the benefit again. Very well received. The employees felt that they were cared about, which they were, and very well received by the particular employees. So again, another example of a custom plan design. It's something that's unique to their organization. It's something that where the benefit costs were increased, not by very much in this particular case, but the benefit costs certainly increased, and the client is really happy. Now, again, because they've got this type of thing, this type of benefit plan, it's fascinating because they're not looking around. Like they're never looking around. They get calls all the time because of the nature of their business and the size of their account. They get calls all the time from various advisors, and the client is just hanging up. Right? He's not taking the calls. All right. So custom plan design, increased benefit costs, happy client, because the advisor added a great deal of value. The advisor added a great deal of value. So on to the next case study, performance-based benefit plan. We wanted, the employer wanted to find a creative way to tie benefits into company performance. And again, this was through asking those future-based questions. If we were meeting here 3 years from today, what has to have happened for you to say it's been the best 3 years of your life? And this discussion came through that question. The employer was very open with their books, with their employees. They shared the results with the employees on an ongoing basis. And they wanted to find a way to tie their benefit plan into company performance. They want to tie everything into company performance. They want to tie bonuses into company performance. They want to tie their benefit plan into company performance. They wanted to tie time off into company performance, etc. So the company had a very vanilla ice cream plan in place. And the vanilla ice cream plan in place, the vanilla ice cream component really was their quote. When we first started dealing with this company, they go, yeah, it's a vanilla ice cream plan and it's boring. But again, those feature-based questions really opened up a conversation. And, they had a basic life AD&D and CI amount. They had medical and dental coverage, and they had 80% reimbursement. Again, very standard vanilla ice cream plan. So after much discussion, what was presented to them and they adopted again was to change the medical and dental plan to 70% reimbursement. So reduce it to 70% reimbursement. Keep the pooled benefits in place, that life AD&D and CI. And in this particular case, we added a healthcare spending account with a flat $500 benefit. So that 10% reduction and the $500 component was a little bit of an increase, but not much. Then we're going to put additional funds on an annual basis into the healthcare spending account based on the previous year's net profit. Based on the previous year's net profit. So 5% of the net profit was divided equally by the number of employees in the plan and deposited into their healthcare spending account. So once a year, in this particular client's case, in April, their company year end is I think the end of January for whatever reason, and they make the change based when the numbers are finalized. They make the change, and an amount of money is deposited on top of the $500 into each person's healthcare spending account for that next year. So it's 5% of the net profit. It goes into a bucket, and then it's divided equally for every member of the bucket. And it's fascinating what's happened with this particular client over the last couple of years. Absolutely fascinating. Well, the result was the employees were happy with the healthcare spending account being added to the plan. They weren't so happy with the 10% reduction, but they were happy with the healthcare spending account. But they were also happy with that 5% bonus, if you would, not a pay bonus, 5% going into their healthcare spending account. And the financial results are shared monthly. The financial results are shared monthly. So they're, hey, we're on target, we're ahead of target, this is where we're trending. It's great. So the employees are excited about the incentive. And again, benefits is just one component of that incentive. But they're excited about the monthly financial results. They're excited when they're ahead of target. They're hustling when they're not ahead of target. And the company has noticed, since they changed this philosophy on a number of things, including benefits, that there's been a significant increase in productivity. A significant increase in productivity with their team. Everybody's working together to reach that goal, right? Everybody's working together to blow the profits from the previous year out, because they want more money in their healthcare spending account and larger bonuses and so on. So it's changed because of these future-based discussions that the advisor and I had with the client. They changed a lot of things in their organization, but it's really just changed the organization. This is a custom plan design for this particular client. They understand it, right? It has increased their benefit costs materially. Costs have gone way up from their vanilla plan, and they're happy about it. They're extraordinarily happy about it. So it's a happy client. So again, custom plan design, increased benefit costs, right? And you've got that happy client. So it's exciting. It's really exciting in this case. Any questions on that before we move on? All right, you can ask them in the chat box as well. But I can't see the chat box, so I think Rob and Mike are answering those questions. But if anybody's got a question, just raise your hand and we'd be happy to answer it. Anyways, case study number 4. This company, great company, and dealt with these guys for a long time. Unfortunately, we lost the client about 2 years ago when the company was sold, but that's fine. Because that happens, companies get bought, companies get sold. But in this particular case, it was interesting. They had significant employee retention issues. They were in the hospitality industry, and they had significant employee retention issues. There was high employee turnover with less than 1 or 2 years of service. Employees would come and work there for 6 months, 9 months, 10 months, a year and a half, and then they'd exit. They had a standard plan in place, and again, it was life and AD&D, and medical and dental was reimbursed at 80%. Just a very simple plan that was in place, but they had this huge turnover of their particular employees. So it was interesting. After much discussion, and again, future-based, where do you want to be? And that future-based discussion, where do you want to be? Well, we want to be at a point where we're not having as much turnover. The turnover is killing us, and it's consistent with every other hospital or many other hospitality businesses out there. And they were, they didn't want to throw their hands up and just say this is just the way it is. We want to try things to reduce that employee turnover. So one of the things that we did, and again, this was one of many initiatives that the client put in place, but one of the things that happened is we suggested that they lower their 80% plan, 80% reimbursement of their plan to 75% for all employees with less than 1 year of service. So all the employees that they really cared about that have been there for many years, this didn't affect them. It did not affect them. So we lowered the plan administration, or sorry, they lowered the reimbursement of their plan from 80 to 75% for year 1. Then we increased it if they stuck around for more than 1 year to 85%. So it was better than the original plan if they were there for more than 1 year. So we're rewarding longevity starting from 1+ years. And then we increased it if they were there for more than 2 years, from 2 to 4 years to 90%. So if they'd stuck around for that 2+ years, all of a sudden they're getting a way better plan than they would have, and a way better plan than their competition was offering, right? And then if they stuck around for 4 years, they were getting 100% reimbursement, 100% reimbursement for their standard plan. Plus we added a healthcare spending account And the healthcare spending account starts at $400 and then increases by $100 every year after that. So you're rewarding that longevity, but you're rewarding the longevity, all of a sudden, with a curve that really goes up. You're rewarding longevity for people that are sticking around for more than 4 years. They've got a very comprehensive benefit plan that is significantly greater than any competition, or in this particular case, any unionized benefit plan that would be, if they ever got union, or if they did ever get unionized, it was significantly better. So they were, voting against that, if you would. But it really rewards longevity in the organization. So again, it goes from, 75% reimbursement for year 1, year 2, it's 85%, 90% for 2 to 4 years, and 100% 4 years after that. So the results were great. The employee retention issue drastically improved. It drastically improved over time. The competitors' plans were not competitive with the enhanced plan, which made recruitment easier, right? So it just, somebody that was coming in, and when they were recruiting someone, they said, we've got this fabulous plan in place that if you stick around, you're going to get a great, fantastic employee benefit plan. And the employees that had been there for some time were getting a significant improvement in their benefit plan, and they really felt valued. They really felt valued. But the company culture also improved because of the lack of turnover. The company culture improved because of the lack of turnover. Hey, you're not working with new people all the time. You didn't have that revolving door, so to speak, right? So all of a sudden, people got to know each other. They got to know each other well, and the company culture improved because of that lack of turnover. The employees were incentivized to stay with the company through benefits and other measures as well. This was just part of these measures that were put in place. Now, the interesting thing is the training costs substantially reduced. The training costs substantially reduced because the turnover was not there like it was before. But benefit costs substantially increased. So it was interesting because the costs of training went way down, and the benefit costs went way up. And this was fascinating because we realized, after we had some discussions with the client about their costs being increased, we realized that the cost of training and turnover was substantially less than the increase in the costs of benefits. So the cost of the training, because it wasn't, people weren't being turned over, had gone way down, because when you were training this in this particular company, you always had a senior person training the new person. Now the senior person is just focused on his or her job, and they can do it extraordinarily well. And the cost associated with that has substantially reduced, uniforms, etc. Right? But even though the benefit cost increased, the delta was a lot less in the overall picture. And it was fascinating because they hired a new accountant in their organization, and the new accountant was doing accounting things. And the new accountant called us and said, your benefit costs have gone up year over year over year, in the last 5 years or 8 years or 10 years or whatever it was. And, I'm really concerned about this and want to talk about it. And the accountant was brand new and didn't understand the backstory. So when we explained the backstory, he looked into that training cost and looked into those costs, and he goes, wow, this really works and really works well. So it was a customized plan design. I'll tell you, this accountant was so furious with us at the beginning because the costs were going up, and they were going up at a rate significantly greater than inflation. He was looking to change advisors. He was looking to put a different plan in place. But once he understood the plan and the reason for it, right, that custom plan design, the increased benefit costs became a shoulder shrug for him because he understood it. And there was, again, a happy client. The client was happy when we first put it into place, and then it was tested again a number of years later by a new accountant. So again, custom plan design, increased benefit costs, and a happy client. Right, a happy client. We're just flying through these. Any thoughts or questions? But please feel free to jump in. This last case study I want to share with you is I call it the healthcare spending account and/or an RRSP. What? You can't do that. Well, there's creative ways of doing anything you want. In this particular organization, the company had a standard plan in place, again, life, AD&D, LTD and CI, medical and dental reimbursement at 80% level, and they had an EAP program. There was no retirement or pension plan in place, no retirement plan or pension plan. The employer wants to stand out in their marketplace. Again, adding those future-based questions or asking those future-based questions, the employer really wants to stand out in the marketplace. They're in a unique industry. Well, all industries are unique. They're in a unique industry, and they just want to be the leaders in this particular industry, and they've successfully done that. And the employer wants to make the entire workforce happy if they make any change. So there was, a lot of things going on. With this particular client, but some of the previous sessions we talked about culture and the vibe that they have going in their particular industry. And we walked in on this case and we said, you had this incredibly cool vibe going on, this incredibly progressive culture going on with your company. But you've got this, pretty straightforward benefit plan, and, it's not sort of jiving. So it was interesting. The discussions began, and after a number of these future-based discussions about where they wanted to be and what they wanted to do, it was decided. And again, it's not just as simple as saying, "Hey, we're going to, present this." There was a number of discussions around it, but it was decided that we were going to keep the pooled benefits in place. We're going to keep the pooled benefits in place, but we were going to change the benefit plan, that 80%. Health and dental plan. We're going to change it to 70% drug only with a drug card. So you got a 70% drug plan and a very basic dental plan, a very, very basic dental plan. And then the employer added a $2,500 healthcare spending account or an RRSP benefit. So the employee had a choice. Every employee had a choice. They can make a choice at the beginning of the year whether they want to put $2,500 into their healthcare spending account, $2,500 into their RRSP, or a combination of both. But it had to be decided annually in advance. So the employees have that choice, and the employees make the choice annually in advance. So it became a really powerful benefit because this company is located in downtown Toronto. The majority of the folks that had family coverage often had spouses or partners that worked elsewhere that had benefits. Healthcare spending account is always the last payer. So they had this very basic plan, but they had this healthcare spending account on top of it. And a lot of employees were thinking about their benefit plan differently since this was put in place, because they're making that decision annually in advance. And they're saying, hey, great, next year, little Johnny's getting braces or little Mary's getting braces. So we want to maximize the amount in our healthcare spending account. But when that's done, we want to maximize it back into our RRSP benefit. But the key thing is, and what became clear for the particular employer, is the employee is making the choice annually in advance. Annually in advance. So they're making this choice on how they're going to spend their money for the next 12 months. That means they're sticking around for the next 12 months. They're not going to leave 5 days after they make this choice, right? It's got to be really, really compelling. So it helped a great deal with retention, but also empowered the employees to make these choices and to stick around. Simple as that. The employees, all the employees, from the feedback that we received from the employer, were happy with the enhancement and the ability to choose which benefit which benefit to opt into. The employees were satisfied with the flexibilities. The employer was pleased with the creative plan design. And it's really interesting because on the renewal on this particular case, it happens in seconds. Like it's so easy because, yeah, the life insurance rate goes up from 20 cents to 21 cents, and it's a shoulder shrug. No one really cares. All right. The EAP doesn't really change. The only thing that really changed, and the 70% plan, really doesn't change that much. It's just inflation and so on and utilization. But the only decision they're making is that $2,500. Is it reasonable? When do we have to increase that? Should we increase it now? Should we increase it every year? Should we increase it every 3 years? But that's really the discussion that the client is having. And they've made that like the renewal process is talking about the future. It's not talking about the past. So it's a really simple plan design that works for this particular employer. It doesn't work for all employers, but it works for this particular employer, and that's what matters. Custom plan design, again, increase benefit costs, and you've got a super happy client. So I think in adding value, that was 5 case studies. But I think in adding value, we all say, oh yeah, we've got to add value. We've got to add value. We've got to add value. And in thinking and putting this presentation together and sharing it with you today and sharing my thoughts on this, how do we add value? How do we add value at a profit? Right? I said that at the beginning, how do we add value and how do we add value at a profit? Well, I think it comes down to 3 things. It's very simple. I think it comes down to 3 things. I think it's about leadership. You got to show your client leadership, show your client direction, right? Show your client direction on where they should go with their benefit plan based on their answers to the future-based question that you're asking. You got to show your client creativity, right? You've got to show them creativity because you're showing your client capabilities. You're showing them how their benefit plan can fit in with their business to achieve their results, right? And you got to show your client relationship, show them confidence. And when you can add value by showing leadership, creativity, and relationship, confidence, capabilities, direction, you're adding value. In all 5 of these examples, their benefit costs went up and the renewals became simple. So it's amazing. And I got to say a really bold statement, when you increase your clients' costs, clients are happy. It's a bold statement. Everybody thinks, or not everybody, certainly not the people on this call, right? But many advisors in the world today think our job is to find the client the lowest price available. That's not the case. That is not the case. It's about the right plan and the right price for that plan. So in these 5 examples, and we've got hundreds more, right? But when you increase costs, clients are happy. Custom plan designs work. They work with clients. Everybody wants to stand out. Everybody on this call wants to stand out compared to their advisor, their advisor competition. You want to stand out, right? You've got to eliminate competition with sticky plan designs. Some of these companies have had this plan design for years. Some of these companies have had these plan designs for years. And it's sticky plan designs create thin files, as opposed to thick files. So I like to say thin files are profitable, thick files are not profitable. So how do you add value? By creating those, or how do you do it at a profit? By creating those thin files. Renewals are easy, simple. I love people that say, when you're talking to them, oh yeah, I've got some bad renewals coming up. I never say that. We never have bad renewals. Why? Because they're aware of what their costs are on a monthly basis. They know they've got the right plan design in place. They know how this benefit plan is working for them to help to achieve their goals, right? Renewals are easy. Never had a bad renewal. Plan members are happy. Plan members are happy because they're part of something that's unique. It's different than everywhere else. When you're at a cocktail party, and an employee's at a cocktail party, everybody gets into, benefit plan happiness, and they talk about how great their benefit plan is or how bad their benefit plan is. But employees that are members of this plan talk about how great their benefit plans are, right? And adding value matters more than lowering the cost. Adding value matters more than lowering the cost. I'm a big believer in when you increase your clients' costs, clients are happy. They just don't know it yet until you show them, right? Provide that leadership, right? Provide that leadership, provide that creativity, and provide that, that confidence in the relationship. And custom plan designs increase benefit costs and create happy clients. So on that, we've got a few minutes left. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see many of you. Who's got some questions, ideas, thoughts, anything they can add, anything that they can do, share ideas. Again, it's about being in a room where everybody gets smarter, not just being the smartest person in the room. Cheryl, you've been around a long time. What about you? Any thoughts, ideas?
Actually, I have a question. Other than a response from other carriers and TPAs about the healthcare spending account and what's eligible,
Yep.
most of them give us a response saying, just go to the CRA website, which is impossible to navigate.
Yep.
Do you have a one-stop shop sort of place where an employee can see what's eligible under a healthcare spending account?
Well, we are guilty. We do have that, website page. We go, here you go, right?
Yeah.
Difficult to navigate. But what we often do is we coach them on, and Cheryl, that's a great question. We coach them saying, if there is, what's the word I want to look for? If there is professional interaction, so you are going to get a service or a product that requires some professional interaction, right? The chances are it's going to be covered under a healthcare spending account. It will be an eligible expense. The list is vast.
I know.
Is pages and pages and pages and pages long. But I like to say, the beginning of the list is all appliances that require medical intervention, customized appliances, right down to veterinarian services for your seeing eye dog. Yeah. Right. So it's such a vast list. We try to ask specific, or have our administrators ask specific questions. Is this covered? And then we can give them some direction on that. So we try to put it back.
This one client was asking about genetic testing. So I went to the site, I looked up diagnostic testing, which sort of was the umbrella for what could be considered genetic testing. But the response I got back from the TPA is, it depends.
Yeah. So. Everything is situational.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a great question. And it depends, but it depends on a number of things, right? I think it depends on a number of things. I think, Cheryl, it depends on the spirit of the employer, right? Some employers don't care. They just go, we've given this person $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is. I don't care how they spend it, as long as it's not a taxable benefit, right? Yeah. They don't want to turn it into a taxable benefit. Genetic testing, great. I think it would be an eligible expense. But if somebody says, an employer says, we just want it to be very, very strict, we'd have to look into that one in a little bit more detail, that specific, question in a little bit more detail. But the other thing is, the Canada Revenue Agency has put a 10% gray area. What's the word? 10% gray area eligibility. Like, they're not too worried about it, as long as it's, somewhat legit. If someone says, hey, great, I need custom shoes, because of my ability to walk comfortably, and they buy them from Harry Rosen's, right? That's probably not an eligible expense because they have an insole in them, right? But genetic testing, I would suggest, would be covered.
Okay. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah. Right or wrong, there's that 10%. What other questions? Anybody else? And sorry to call on you like that, Cheryl. I just knew you'd have a good one. Brett Resmeyer.
Yeah, I just had a question about where you were talking about the group RSP and the healthcare spending account. Have you run across a situation where, or I didn't even know if you can do it, where at the end of the year, if there's any money left in the healthcare spending account, the employees can then roll that into a group RSP?
Yeah, absolutely. But we got to be perfectly clear on this. So the question is, hey, if you've got a healthcare spending account and they don't, let's just say, for example, there's no carry forward provision in that healthcare spending account, and they want any unused portion to roll into an RRSP. It's a great question. And the answer is yes, you can do it, but you've got to be very careful on how you do it. Because it can't go directly, for example, from the benefits trust to an account at TD Wealth. Right? It's got to go back to the employer as a refund of unused portion. So they've had a deduction. The employer's had a deduction, a tax deductible amount, for their benefit plan costs. Right? So it goes back. So they've had that deduction. So the amount is refunded because it's an unused portion of their healthcare spending account because there's no carry forward provision. It goes back to the employer. The employer recognizes that as taxable income, and then the employer spins it out to the account at TD or the account at Scotiabank or whatever RSP account that the individual has. So it's not a benefit promised more, it's more of a corporate philosophy or corporate policy. So it goes out of the company, back into the company, and then out again as a deduction to the employees RRSP.
Okay,
But
thanks.
through a corporate policy. Can't go from us directly. So one of the things that we do is, in not circumventing any privacy legislation without a doubt, but we send the administrator a check on an annual basis for all of our accounts when they have refunds coming back for healthcare spending accounts, for example. And what we do is we say, terrific, here's $1,000, and Brett's refund or Brett's account balance is 750, and Richard's account balance is $200, and Adam's account balance is $50, right? So it's detailed, but without getting detailed about privacy legislation. There was another question. Another question there. Gary, how are you, Gary? Thanks for joining.
Hey, Rob, just living the dream. How are you?
Good.
This is probably a silly question and maybe a subject for another podcast, but you've talked about a lot of wins, but you've probably had some losses. You've probably lost some accounts that you were absolutely shocked about, and probably everybody on this call has gone through the same thing. And I'm just getting ready to do some of my renewals for some of the plans I have in place. And I just wondered if there's any lessons learned from some of the losses you've had where, like, gee, if I'd known about this, I might have approached the presentation a little differently, or sometimes you just lose accounts because there's nothing you can do about it. Again, I know we only got 3 minutes left, but I just wondered if you had anything you could share.
Well, thanks. And that's a great question. Yeah. We talked about 5 wins, and, we certainly have some strikeouts too, without a doubt, like we all do. And if you didn't, you don't have enough clients. We lose business primarily because of a couple of different things. We lose business because a client sells their business, right? That's the biggest one, because we're dealing with smaller employers. Generally speaking, where we're dealing with advisors with smaller employers, generally speaking, they're more volatile, than a large employer. So we lose business because they get sold or purchased. We lose business because the main reason why we lose business after that reason is because, quite frankly, the advisors aren't doing their job. They're not talking to the client. They're not asking the future-based questions. They're not following the direction on, where the client's going, and the client, or they're not responsive to the client. Like it's interesting. We had a particular client, and I got to watch my time here. We had a particular client that we sent renewals to this particular advisor, which is our process. And we assumed that the advisor was delivering the renewals. The client called us up and asked us questions about plan design. And we were kind of saying, have you talked to your advisor? And they go, who's that? The advisor hadn't been there in 6 years or 7 years. And the advisor's philosophy, which just blows my mind, was, hold on a second, I only respond when the client, causes a ruckus, right? If they don't cause a ruckus, everything's good. So it was just amazing philosophy. So the real reason, again, is being sold, but the real reason why we have strikeouts or lose business is because the advisor isn't doing his or her job. Right. So it's talking to your clients. Talk to your clients. We're giving you the tools where the client is being informed on a monthly basis, with their account balance, with our financial statement, which we can talk more about at another time. But, it's really talking to your client on a regular basis. In our Trusted Advisor newsletter that we send out on a monthly basis, that all of you get, and if you have just joined us for the first time, now you're going to get it. But, there's I call it the touch point, the client touch point idea. And I can't remember what it was. It was just saying, hey, really thankful. I think it was Thanksgiving themed. The last one, just calling up the client and saying, hey, Mr. Client, just really really thankful for the business relationship that we have. And it just creates conversation. What can we do to help you? What's changing in your business? Right. So just be in touch with your client. Communicate with your client. Don't be afraid of your client. Talk to them. They looked to you as the advisor. So guess what? Advise them. Provide that leadership, provide that creativity. Joel, real quick,
Yeah, very quickly, I agree 200% with what you said. I can't tell you the number of times over my long career that I've taken cases away from somebody just for the one reason they don't know who their broker is, haven't seen them, doesn't come and do quarterly experiences, doesn't answer quickly, gives a 1-800 number, doesn't come to see them,
Yeah.
doesn't. So I agree with you 200% on that.
Thanks. Well, we've had a chat for an hour now, folks. Thank you very much for attending. On behalf of all of us at the Benefits Trust, we want to thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it. I know your time is valuable. I hope you got a good idea out of this, one or two anyway. We want to thank you again for your time. You're going to get a CE credit for participating. You're also going to get a short survey. Fill it out. We want to do better tomorrow than we did today. Check out our website. Rob or Mike, do you know that date of that? I should have had it. I apologize for the travel insurance.
It was November 30th. I put it in the chat.
Thanks. November 30th. We hope to see you all there. We're doing 2 more of these. Tell your friends. We got one Thursday, one next Wednesday, and then November 30th, we're going to be back with a great session on travel insurance. So again, on behalf of all of us at the Benefits Trust, we want to say good selling and thanks for attending. We're going to stick around for a few more minutes, and I'm going to stop recording. And then if anybody has any specific questions or ideas they want to share, that would be great. But let's stick around for a few minutes. Thanks, everybody.